Hello everybody and welcome to the ESI Digest, where we run through the biggest esports related business news stories of the week. I'm Tom Daniels, the sub-editor of Esports Insider, and this episode of the ESI Digest is in partnership with We Are Nations, an esportswear and apparel firm, so we're happy to have them on board. This week's ESI Digest, we have 5 massive stories for you all, and then one story at the end which we're going to talk about, which has just come in as time of this recording. So we're going to be talking about ESI and Guinevere Captial launching the League of Legends circuit Oceania. We've got Nerd Street Gamers raising $11.5 million in additional funding. PUBG Esports announcing their 2021 plans. PGL announcing a Dota 2 major after announcing a CSGO major, I believe, last month. And then Anzu also gain investment of $9.5 million as well. We've also got a little bit of news about North, and that will be coming at the end of the episode, so don't miss out on that one. The first story is some massive news for the Oceanic League of Legends scene. We already knew that ESL and Guinevere Captial were going to be launching their own Oceanic League of Legends tournament, and some details have finally been released along with a start date and a little bit of formatting as well. So it's really, really good news to see. The name of the tournament is the League of Legends Circuit Oceania, LCO for short. And obviously this follows on from the OPL. Riot Games' hosted official, Riot Games tournament for League of Legends, closing its doors last year. Now, this is huge. It is an 8-team League of Legends competition. It'll be starting on February 23rd, and I believe it's about 8 weeks, 19 play days, and what they'll be doing is they'll be competing not only for the LCO, the inaugural LCO title, but also a spot at MSI. So it's still nice to see that Oceanic teams can still have a chance to go into an international Riot-hosted tournament. I think overall that this is very, very good for the Oceanic esports scene. Obviously, we saw the Oceanic import rule kind of be whitewashed in the LCS, so now you can have Oceanic players go into the North American League of Legends competition without being an import. So we are probably going to see a little bit of a drop down in terms of player quality, but it's always good, for tournament operators, for, people inside tournament operations, also for casters and up-and-coming players as well, and it keeps that Oceanic esports system going, and I think that's what is needed, and I'm glad to see that despite the OPL going, the ESL, Guinevere Captial, have managed to find and create another tournament. And the response so far has been very, very good. And I'm really looking forward to see kind of what this tournament delivers in the coming weeks. The next story sees Nerd Street Gamers raise $11.5 million in additional funding. Now, this is off the back of its October 2019 funding as well, where they raised $12 million. So a lot of investment has come into Nerd Street Gamers within the past 2 years or so. Now, this is such an interesting kind of investment story because Nerd Street Gamers obviously were very much known for esports facilities and also like tournament organization and kind of hosting competitions as well. But to see how they've transitioned and especially taken into the Valorant scene a lot, and obviously they got rewarded by being announced that they will be hosting, I believe, some of the official Riot Games, Champions Tour events, which is such a big kind of opportunity for them. The fact that they have gained this additional funding is definitely a testament to how the organization and how the company has adapted during these coronavirus times especially. The funding round was led by venture capital firm Founders Fund, and according to the release, the additional funds will be used to accelerate the company's growth. So again, it's not really like focusing on maybe specific things, but keeping the growth of the company going. And I can guess that that probably does mean, with more local hosts around America being created alongside, probably this more online identity that they've also been given. So it's really interesting to see this amount of money being invested. Be interested to see kind of how they continue to grow, post kind of coronavirus. Will they be primarily focusing on like the event side with the local hosts, with the facilities, or will they even kind of continue along this online kind of sector which they have developed for themselves in terms of hosting tournaments? Speaking of investment, an in-game advertising platform, Anzu, has raised $9 million, which is around £6.5 million in its latest round of funding as well. Now, this is the likes of Bitcraft and Sony Innovation Fund who have become investors in the advertising platform. The capital is going to be used really to expand the company's commercial growth alongside funding sales and marketing initiatives and to assist in moving it forward on a global scale. This definitely feels like it's a push into more AAA titles for Anzu. They've come out and said it themselves that they kind of want to integrate themselves more into AAA titles. And while that doesn't necessarily mean esports, that probably will include esports as well. We've seen a lot more esports integrate kind of in-game advertising into their tournaments, into their events. You know, look no further than what LEC and Riot Games are doing with all their tournaments as well. You've got like Kia logos around, you know, banners around Summoner's Rift and also in the Baron Pit. There's loads of in-game activations which are happening right now. So you can see definitely why, one, you know, it's getting more popular, and two, why you're seeing investments from, you know, Bitcraft, who led the round, I believe, alongside HBSE Ventures as well. Other participants in the funding round include WPP, the Chicago Cubs, Alumni Ventures Group alongside Sony Innovation Fund. And then also, this is where I think that maybe more esports is going to be included into Anzu's kind of clientele in the future, is because Riot Games co-founder Mark Merrill and the publisher's former co-CEO Dylan Collins were also revealed as investors as well. The only other thing to kind of note about this partnership is that Anzu's investors will act as strategic partners, with the advertising platform actually remaining an independent company. I think, you know, maybe in the future we'll kind of see Anzu secure more partnerships with esports in the future, alongside, like I said, more AAA titles as they continue to grow and develop throughout, you know, again, what has been a very, very rocky, you know, 18 months at least for not just the esports industry, but every industry as a whole. Next up, let's talk about some PUBG, and Krafton have announced the 2021 esports plans for the console version and the PC version of the game. According to the release, the upcoming PUBG season, which commences with the PUBG Global Invitational this week, will consist of 4 global PUBG events throughout the year. After PGI concludes, the game developer will hold a 4th and 5th editions of its global continental series in June and September. Similar to last year, both PCS events, will be online regional tournaments taking place across Europe, Asia, Asia Pacific, and the Americas, which now includes North America and LATAM. The season will obviously accumulate with the PUBG Global Championships in November. So there's a lot of information which they have revealed. They have not announced kind of the prize pools which will be available for these competitions. I believe that the PUBG Global Invitational has announced its prize pool, but the other ones have not been announced how much teams will be competing for. I think kind of the main thing about this story is the fact that we're still seeing Krafton invest in PUBG, not just its mobile variant as well. We've seen the success of PUBG Mobile kind of blow up in recent times, and mobile gaming in general blow up. But the fact that kind of Krafton are still trying to push, you know, PUBG, the original version, and not the mobile version as well, kind of shows that they still have plans for both titles, and they see actually a future for both titles as well. Krafton have come out and said in that press release regarding like the esports plans that they were focusing on like fan engagement, on the teams, on the professional, and kind of just building this PUBG ecosystem even more. And it's good to see, and I kind of want to see what they have plans for in terms of deliverance of these tournaments throughout 2021, and how it kind of will differ from the stylistic view that PUBG Mobile has as well. I think it's very interesting to see how these two directions of these two, you know, essentially the same game, just in different variants, can do in esports. The penultimate story of this digest comes from esports tournament organisation PGL, and it's some good news. They've announced that they will host the Singapore Dota 2 Major, which is the first major of the 2021 Dota Pro Circuit, in March. Now, this is an offline event scheduled to take place between March 27th and April 4th, and it will be the first major to occur in Dota 2 since January 2020. So this is huge news. Obviously, the fact that it's in Singapore probably helps because, you know, coronavirus is not as prominent over there as it is in other places in the world right now. And it kind of follows on. I haven't mentioned it in the digest, but it follows on from the 6th Invitational, which is the Rainbow Six Siege competition, cancelling its event, which was meant to take place, I believe, next week. So the Singapore Major will be organised alongside One Championship's esports subsidiary, One Esports, and the Singapore Tourism Board. One Esports was set to hold the Singapore major in 2020 before it was ultimately called off due to COVID-19. So it's good to see that at least One Esports is still involved with the tournament alongside PGL as well. So like I said, it's really good news for Dota 2 to get a major up and running. Now the final story of the ESI Digest unfortunately isn't some great news, but we thought we had to cover it. It literally just came in as we were starting to record this podcast. Scandinavian esports organisation North has announced its closure. It is shut down. It is gone. They tweeted it out saying that, you know, basically the funding from Pack and Sport and Entertainment and Nordisk Film have decided that they're no longer going to invest in North, and as a result, they've disbanded. For those who don't know, Park and Sport and Entertainment are the owners of Danish football club Copenhagen, which so that's why kind of North is part of that Copenhagen kind of brand. And it seems that due to kind of COVID-19 and the struggles that the football club has particularly been going through with the fact of, you know, not being able to have fans in stadium, probably a lack of like sales in terms of, you know, revenue for the stadium as well, they've had to opt of essentially scaling down its esports division, basically getting rid of North. They're keeping the FIFA team for the E-Divisa, the E-Super League, apologies. But that's kind of the only esports initiative that they seem to be doing right now. This doesn't mean that is bye for North forever. There is probably still a possibility that we could have some type of version of North in the future, but as of right now, the esports organization has basically said that it is over, and kind of highlights how despite, you know, esports growing as an industry, it can still, you know, cause casualties like this. So it's important to kind of recognize that and show that as well. And that's really it for the ESI Digest. Obviously, we ended on a bit of a sour note, but still some really, really amazing stories which have come in through the esports business sector. And obviously, we'd like to thank our partner, We Are Nations, for sponsoring this episode of the Digest and sponsoring some future episodes of the Digest as well, which I really appreciate. Obviously, if you want to hear more about the stories which we've talked about, and also even more stories which have come on the Esports Insider's website, then visit the website. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Esports Insider. If you want to follow me as well, it's at the Tom Daniels. And also follow the Instagram. We're really trying to push the Instagram. I'm trying so hard to get daily stories out there every day, so hopefully you guys can at least check that out as well. But this has been Tom Daniels, and yeah, that's been the ESI Digest.